Describing Constantine's personality remains challenging due to the limited and often biased sources available. We can only form an understanding of him based on the records from his time, whether these are his speeches, chronicles, or his actions, the buildings he commissioned, inscriptions, coins, slogans, or propaganda. Each of these sources provides a glimpse into his reign, but none of these offer a complete and ambiguous portrait. Any attempt to draw a single definitive image of Constantine quickly reveals the complexity and contradictions in these sources. The primary written accounts about Constantine come from orators who praised him publicly, often as part of official celebrations. These orators were paid professionals who gave speeches in cities across the empire marking important events like the emperor's birthday, his anniversary of ascension, or even the birthdays of his sons. After the death of his eldest son, Constantine's actions were still publicly commemorated, though now with a more somber tone. The speeches often praised Constantine's victories, and especially over the barbarians, with the same tone. Today we celebrate the greatest emperor ever seen. A skilled orator would elaborate on this theme at length, reinforcing the emperor's glory. Another significant source is the writings of Christian historians from the time, who chronicled Constantine's reign with admiration, particularly for ending the persecutions of Christians and supporting the church with imperial favor. These historians, seeing Constantine as a champion of their faith, often depicted him as a saintly figure, the likes of which had never been seen before in the empire. One of the most prominent Christian historians of this period is Eusebius of Caesarea, the bishop of Caesarea in Palestine. Eusebius, a Greek writer, was the first to create a historical genre specifically dedicated to the Christian church. In his works, Eusebius presents Constantine as a highly favorable light, portraying him as divinely chosen and instrumental in securing the church's position within the empire. His writings set the tone for many later accounts of Constantine, painting him as a hero of Christianity. After Constantine's death, Eusebius, the bishop of Caesarea, wrote the life of Constantine the emperor in Greek. This work is a blend of the lives of the Caesars in Roman historiography and the lives of the saints in Christian literature. Here's an example of Eusebius' tone. Constantine, unique among all those who had ruled over the Roman Empire, became a friend of God, King of the universe. God chose him as his champion and made him invincible. God appointed him as a teacher to instruct all people in piety towards him. Constantine loudly one true God, rejecting the false gods who do not exist. He declared himself a servant of the King of the universe, and God rewarded him by making him Lord, Master, and Victor, the only invincible emperor, blessed, indeed 3 times blessed, much greater than Alexander the Great, and so on. This is the tone of Christian historians when they describe Constantine. They emphasize his divine favor and portray him as a saintly emperor, a man chosen by God to bring victory and prosperity to the empire. On the other hand, we have a different perspective from authors who were critical of Constantine. One such figure was Constantine's grandson, Julian. Following Constantine's death in 337 AC, Constantine's sons, eager to consolidate power, ordered the execution of nearly all their uncles and cousins. The only survivor of this bloodbath was Julian, who had been in Athens at the time. Although Constantine's family had converted to Christianity, Julian, despite being raised as a Christian, was drawn to Greek philosophy and eventually rejected Christianity in favor of paganism. Because of this, Julian became known as the apostate, a title given to him by Christian historians for renouncing the faith. Julian as the last surviving member of Constantine's family was proclaimed emperor by the soldiers after the death of Constantine's son Constantius. However, his reign was brief. 2 years later, while engaged in a campaign against the Persians, Julian died. His death marked the end of the last pagan emperor of Rome. Julian was an intellectual and a man of letters who studied in Athens. He wrote in Greek and produced numerous works where he freely expressed his thoughts. In the Roman Empire, the emperor was essentially the only person among its 50 million subjects who could openly voice his opinions without fear. During this time, at the court of his cousin Constantius, son of Constantine, Julian, being an intellectual, was often called upon to deliver public speeches praising the emperor. We still have some of these speeches in which Julian would lavish praise, declaring, "Uncle Constantine, the greatest of emperors, but his son Constantius, my cousin, is even greater." However, once Julian outlived his rivals and became emperor himself, his tone drastically changed. He began writing about Constantius and Constantine in scathing terms. That filthy Constantius, that idiot, that criminal, an uncle of Constantine, my uncle Constantine, even worse. Julian's opinion of Constantine, expressed in several of his works, was equally harsh. He described Constantine as ignorant and inept, saying, even though he was a soldier, he was a bit of a fool. He didn't know how to govern, and he didn't even know how to make war. He simply had great luck. Otherwise, I don't know how he would have managed. Julian mocked Constantine's parenting, declaring, "Look at how he ended with his sons, with his 3 sons, those sons of his. What a disaster. He didn't teach them anything and thought it was enough to simply have many children." Reflecting further, Julian remarked, "Uncle Constantine, yes, he was a fool, but in the end, he wasn't truly bad. He was just weak. He loved power, but mostly it allowed him to indulge in luxury, to live grandly, and enjoy life." According to Julian, Constantine's weakness led to various atrocities. Of course, someone is weak that had committed all sorts of crimes with his hands dripping with blood. But in the end, those crimes weighed heavily on him. Julian, as the pagan emperor, determined to restore Rome's traditional religion and undermine Christianity, but also commented sarcastically on Constantine's conversion. He wrote, "Uncle Constantine, burdened by his sons, heard about some guy called Cresto or Christo, whatever his name was, who supposedly erased all sins and guilt. This Christ would sprinkle a little water on the people's heads, and just like that, all their sins would vanish." Julian continues his scripture of Constantine. "So when Uncle Constantine heard about this Christ, he didn't believe it at first, but eventually he rushed to become a follower. Now you understand when Eusebius of Caesarea calls Constantine 3 times blessed. The historian might say, hold on a moment, let's not take this literally. Similarly, when Emperor Julian mocks Constantine, saying he had the soul of a hairdresser, perhaps that too should have been taken literally. This highlights a recurring challenge in interpreting historical sources. They were not written to provide objective truth for modern readers. Like modern journalists, ancient writers had their own motives. They sought to defend their views, attack their enemies, and support their allies.